Welcome to our deep dive into the fascinating world of economics. We're going to uncover how economics shapes our lives, even in like the simplest things.
Yeah, like choosing breakfast.
Or buying a chocolate bar.
It's true. Get ready to be surprised by how much happier
Healthy.
and wealthier understanding just the basics can make you.
Okay, let's unpack this with something everyone can relate to. Breakfast.
Breakfast.
Imagine you're craving that perfectly Instagrammable avocado toast. Seems pretty straightforward, right?
Not so fast.
Why?
Think about all the decisions and actions that had to happen to bring that toast to your table.
Okay, like what?
Farmers had to grow the avocados and wheat, truck drivers transported them,
Factory workers bake the bread.
and countless others packaged and shipped those ingredients. Your simple toast is a testament to the intricate web of the economy
Wow, I never thought about it that way. It's like a chain reaction of choices,
and trade-offs.
all leading up to that first bite.
And speaking of trade-offs, that brings us to a fundamental economic concept, opportunity cost.
Okay, so what's that?
It's not just about the price tag, it's about what you're giving up by choosing one thing over another.
So it's like those picnic sweets we all loved as kids. You know, if you went for the giant gobstopper.
You have to sacrifice the chance to get 3 other yummy sweets.
Yeah, your limited resources.
In this case, the size of your bag or your pocket money.
Forced you to make choices.
Every decision comes with an opportunity cost.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I bet we've all fallen victim to that false economy trap.
What's that?
Buying the cheapest shoes that fall apart after a month? You think you're saving money.
But end up spending more in the long run.
Exactly.
It all circles back to the law of demand,
Okay.
which states that the price of something directly impacts how much people want it.
Like what?
Take, for example, the introduction of plastic bag charges.
Right.
That tiny price increase caused a massive reduction in single-use bags.
It's amazing how a small nudge can change behavior. So does this apply to brands too? Like if Coca-Cola suddenly became super expensive?
Chances are you'd see people switching to Pepsi. They're substitutes. So when the price of one goes up, demand for the other often increases.
Makes sense. But are there ever times when a higher price actually makes people want something more?
Absolutely. Think about luxury brands like Gucci or Rolex.
Okay, yeah.
The higher price tag often adds to their appeal.
Right, it makes them seem more exclusive.
Rupal Patel and Jack Meaning call this conspicuous consumption in their book. Can't we just print more money?
Interesting.
People buy luxury goods to signal their status so a higher price can actually boost demand.
It's like that classic restaurant scenario.
Yeah.
You don't want to appear cheap, so you choose the second cheapest wine, even if you'd secretly prefer the cheapest.
Precisely. And there are less glamorous examples, too. Economist Robert Giffen observed that in Victorian Britain, poor families actually bought more bread when the price went up,
Why would they do that?
because it squeezed their budgets, leaving them with less money for other more expensive foods.
Okay, let's dive into this whole market concept. I usually picture a bustling farmer's market, but it's a much broader idea, right?
A market is any situation where buyers and sellers interact to determine price and quantity. It could be a street vendor, an online auction, or the stock market. It's all about finding that balance point where supply meets demand.
But markets aren't always perfect, are they? Like that time the Bank of England canteen offered free chips and everyone piled their plates high.
Oh, yeah.
They ran out super fast.
Ah, yes, a classic example of market failure. In this case, the lack of a price signal led to overconsumption, leaving everyone ultimately worse off.
So how do we deal with these market hiccups, especially those with significant consequences like pollution?
One solution is government intervention. Consider carbon emissions trading schemes. They create a market for pollution permits, effectively putting a price on carbon and encouraging companies to reduce their emissions. It's an attempt to use market mechanisms to address what economists call an externality.
So an externality is like the side effects of an action that impacts people not directly involved. For instance, if a factory pollutes a river, the whole community suffers, not just the factory owners.
Exactly. This concept lies at the heart of debates about things like tuition fees. Are the benefits of higher education primarily private, or are there substantial social benefits that justify government subsidies?
That's a big question. It really makes you think about the balance between personal gain and social responsibility.
And this tension is constantly at play in the economy. Should companies prioritize profit over ethical production? Should governments intervene to correct market failures or let the invisible hand do its thing?
These are complex questions. But having a grasp of the underlying economics can help us navigate these choices. Now let's turn our attention to a market that's particularly close to home, the labor market.
This is where things get especially interesting.
Yeah, like what factors determine our wages and why is unemployment a persistent problem even in a strong economy? Imagine hopping in a time machine and landing back in the 1970s. You might be shocked by how much lower wages were compared to today.
That's because wages, just like anything else, are determined by the supply and demand for labor. Back then, the demand for certain skills was different, and the overall economy faced unique challenges.
It's fascinating how those factors can impact wages. Nowadays, a highly skilled gamer could potentially earn more than someone working a traditional office job.
Absolutely. And understanding the different types of unemployment,
Like what types?
cyclical, structural, frictional, helps explain why people sometimes struggle to find jobs even when the economy seems strong.
So it's not always about a simple lack of jobs, but also the challenges of matching skills to available positions and the natural ups and downs of the economic cycle.
Exactly. The labor market is far more intricate than it might appear at first glance.
Well, from avocado toast to labor markets, it's clear that economics is interwoven into every aspect of our lives. I'm really starting to see things in a new light. What else can we uncover as we keep going?
And a thriving labor market is one of the key drivers of a concept that can often seem abstract: economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just talking about numbers and charts.
Right.
It's about the overall prosperity of a nation, which ultimately translates into a better quality of life for individuals.
I love that Patel and Meaning describe it as a growing cake.
Oh, yeah.
As the economy expands, the cake gets bigger, meaning everyone gets a larger slice.
That's a great way to visualize it. One way we measure the size of this cake is through gross domestic product, or GDP.
Okay.
It represents the total value of everything produced within an economy.
But there's some surprising things GDP doesn't capture, right?
Like what?
Like if I clean my own house, it doesn't count towards GDP.
Uh-huh.
But if I pay my neighbor to clean it, suddenly it boosts the economy.
That's because GDP focuses primarily on market transactions. Unpaid household labor, however valuable, doesn't show up in those official figures. And there are other limitations, too. For instance, illegal activities like drug dealing aren't included, even though they clearly contribute to economic activity.
So GDP is a useful tool, but it's not a perfect measure. But why should we care about economic growth in the first place? How does it impact our daily lives?
Economic growth has a direct impact on our lives. Studies show that as GDP per capita rises, poverty tends to decrease. Economic growth can lead to higher wages, better access to health care, and improved living standards overall.
It reminds me of that incredible story Patel and Meaning share about China lifting millions out of poverty thanks to rapid economic growth.
Exactly. And to understand how this growth occurs, we need to look at the four factors of production:
Which are?
land, labor capital, and technology.
It's like the essential ingredients for baking that economic cake. Land provides the resources, labor represents the workforce capital, encompasses the machinery and tools.
And technology acts as the secret ingredient that makes everything more efficient. Think about how computers and smartphones have completely transformed the way we work and live. They boost productivity and fuel economic growth.
Technology has this incredible multiplier effect, allowing us to do more with the same amount of resources. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. But economic growth isn't always smooth sailing, is it? What about those times when we see prices starting to climb?
Ah, yes, the dreaded inflation. It can feel like a sneaky tax, chipping away at the value of our savings. Remember those Freddo chocolate bars we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
They've gotten a lot more expensive over time.
And sometimes companies resort to sneaky tactics like shrinkflation.
Shrinkflation.
Yeah, reducing product sizes while keeping the prices the same. It's like they're trying to pull a fast one on consumers.
Right.
I'll admit I've fallen for that more than once.
And then there's the extreme case of hyperinflation, where prices spiral out of control. Patel and Meaning use the example of Zimbabwe, where people were using wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy basic necessities.
That sounds utterly terrifying. But can prices going down also be a bad thing?
Absolutely. Deflation can lead to a downward spiral in the economy. If people expect prices to keep falling, they'll delay purchases, which reduces demand, leading to further price drops and so on.
It's a vicious cycle. So finding that Goldilocks zone, that sweet spot of low and stable inflation, is crucial for a healthy economy. It's all about balance.
And maintaining that delicate balance is one of the core responsibilities of central banks like the Bank of England.
Speaking of the Bank of England, they play a crucial role in another fundamental aspect of the economy: money. It's something we use every day, but I never stop to think about what actually makes money.
Well, money.
It all boils down to trust. Money is essentially a system of trust. Think of it like lending a friend some cash at the store. You trust they'll pay you back, just like we trust that those pieces of paper we call money actually hold value. It's amazing how money has evolved over time. From bartering to gold coins to paper money, each step built on this foundation of trust.
And nowadays, banks play a vital role in maintaining that trust. They safeguard our deposits, provide loans, and even create money through something called the fractional reserve banking system.
Wait, banks can create money. How does that work?
Imagine those goldsmiths back in 17th century England. They realized they could lend out a portion of the gold people deposited with them, keeping just a fraction in reserve. Today, banks do the same thing with our deposits, creating new money in the process.
But isn't that risky? What about those classic bank run scenes in movies like It's a Wonderful Life, where everyone panics and tries to withdraw their money all at once?
Bank runs are a real risk, and they highlight the importance of central banks and financial regulation. The Bank of England acts as a lender of last resort, providing emergency funds to banks to prevent their collapse and maintain stability in the financial system.
It's like a safety net for the entire economy. But even with these safeguards in place, financial crises can still occur, can't they?
Unfortunately, yes. The 2007-2008 financial crisis serves as a stark reminder of how interconnected the global economy is and how quickly things can unravel.
So what causes these crises, and can we predict when they're going to happen?
Financial crises are often triggered by a combination of factors such as speculative bubbles, excessive debt, or even pandemics. Predicting them is incredibly difficult, as Patel and Meaning point out in their book.
It's like trying to predict the weather. Economists develop sophisticated models to understand and forecast economic trends, but there are always unforeseen events and human behaviors that can throw things off course.
And speaking of unpredictable events, let's talk about one of the most powerful tools central banks have at their disposal: quantitative easing, or QE.
This is where things get really interesting. It reminds me of that scene in Money Heist, where the characters print money to disrupt the economic system.
Well, QE isn't simply about printing more banknotes. It's a method central banks use to inject money into the economy by purchasing assets like government bonds.
So it's not just creating more money, but also influencing interest rates and encouraging lending and investment.
Exactly. And QE has been a key tool for combating deflation and stimulating economic activity, particularly in countries like Japan, which has grappled with sluggish growth for years.
But QE has its fair share of critics right in.
There's a lot of debate about its effectiveness and potential long-term consequences.
Absolutely. It's a complex tool with many nuances, and economists continue to debate its role in managing the economy.
From the economics of our everyday choices to the complexities of quantitative easing, it's clear that this field is both vast and fascinating.
And it's not just for experts in ivory towers. We all make economic decisions daily, whether we're conscious of it or not.
It really makes me think about that story Patel and Meaning share in Can't We Just Print More Money? About Charlene, the charity worker who participated in a Bank of England citizen panel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she initially felt totally disconnected from economics, viewing economists as stuck up, posh, and boring.
But then she had this aha moment where she realized how relevant it was to her own life. She even admitted she regretted not voting in the Brexit referendum because she felt so uninformed about the economic implications.
Charlene's story is a powerful example of why economic literacy matters for everyone. Understanding these concepts can empower us to make more informed choices, advocate for our own interests, and even participate more meaningfully in shaping the world around us.
It's like we're equipping ourselves with a whole new set of lenses, allowing us to see the hidden forces at play in our daily lives. So what does all this mean for us, the everyday folks who aren't economists?
It means that economics isn't just some abstract academic subject. It's a powerful tool for understanding our own lives and the world we live in. Whether you're deciding what to have for dinner, negotiating a salary, or thinking about the climate crisis, economic principles are always at work.
Patel and Meaning really drive that point home in their book.
Yeah.
They argue that economics can actually make us happier, healthier, and wealthier.
Exactly. By understanding concepts like opportunity cost, we can make smarter decisions about how we spend our time and money. By grasping the dynamics of supply and demand, we can navigate the job market more effectively and advocate for fair wages. And by recognizing the interconnectedness of the global economy, we can contribute to creating a more sustainable and equitable future.
It's all about empowering ourselves with knowledge and then putting that knowledge into action to create positive change. So where can our listeners go from here? What are some key takeaways they can apply to their own lives starting today?
First and foremost, remember that every choice comes with a cost. Think about those trade-offs, those opportunities you might be missing out on when you make a decision.
It goes back to that pick mix analogy. Picking one sweet means giving up the chance to have others. And those seemingly small decisions can really add up over time.
Second, never underestimate the power of staying informed. Keep up with economic trends, read insightful books like Can't We Just Print More Money? And engage in conversations about these issues.
Yeah, the more we understand, the better prepared we'll be
Yeah.
to make informed choices and stand up for what we believe in.
And finally, remember that you're not just a passive observer in the economy, you're an active participant. Your decisions matter. Whether you're buying a product, investing your savings, or voting in an election, you're shaping the economic landscape.
It's a call to action. We can all be informed and engaged economic citizens making choices that benefit not just ourselves, but also the world around us. As we wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of economics, here's a final thought-provoking question for our listeners. How can you use your newfound economic understanding to make a positive impact on your own life and the world we share? Thanks for joining us.